Hi, hello, welcome in. This is phase 2 of the one prompt, 5 stories challenge. I'm going to be. Okay, actually, first things first is I'm supposed to choose 3 of the 5 stories that I wrote back in phase 1. If you haven't seen the phase 1 video, go check it out. This is a difficult thing to do. Let me pull up the stories. So the challenge asks to choose your 3 favorite. But at some point, you're also going to want to consider whether or not these stories will be short stories. That is what you are asked of between phase 2 and 3. But I think that that's going to end up coming into my decision anyways. We're also going to look at like my excitement over the stories. And also, I've had an idea for one of the stories that wasn't the initial purpose or direction that I think makes it a great candidate for a short story, and so that one is definitely going to make it in. But let's do a quick refresh. Actually, the best way to do a refresh is probably to look at the Instagram posts that I created, because they kind of give a quick gist. So let me pull that up for you guys. Best way to do this. Okay, so we're just going to run through these. So the first one, sprint number 1, the gist is 2 women are fighting about going inside. One is adamant it's a natural part of their adventure. The other insists they are there to explore nature, not buildings. The favorite quote says, "Nature, not decrepit buildings. It could be filled with mold, bats, rats, termites, and falling beams." And so this one is kind of like these 2 women are out like hiking or exploring nature in some way, shape, or form, and they come across an abandoned building, ruins, something like that, and one of them wants to explore inside. And the kind of direction that I think it will go is that the building is haunted. So that's the first one. The next one is sprint number 2, the gist. 2 women show up for a dinner party of some sort, but hear a tussle happening inside. They're not sure if they should interrupt. The quote from it is, "Yeah, that was definitely a plate breaking. One's an accident, a second one seems intentional." This is the one where I've kind of had an idea for a new direction, which actually pushes it to be less of a different story, and I haven't quite figured it out yet. But I think someone is possessed. Now, I don't know if it's the wife or the husband. The other option is like very similar in that the wife has done some sort of ritual or spell and it has kind of gone awry. And also, I feel like there's a definite assumption that it's the husband, and I did lean that way at the very end of the sprint. But I think it would also be interesting for it to be like the wife who's like slamming things, or at the very least like it's her fault. That's like actually her fault, not like abusive spouse taking the blame, but like actually she's done something and like there's something supernatural going on that's like making things happen. Or this is coming to me just now, the other option is that neither one of them was the one who like broke a plate, but that like the house is haunted and like an entity was breaking plates. Again, obviously that pushes it like back in like a horror direction, which is where like a lot of these went. But I think that's fun, and so I think you can tell I'm leaning toward this one moving on. Sprint number 3. The gist, a widespread survival situation, could be zombies, could be a natural disaster, could be social downfall, whatever. Either way, these 2 women are looking for shelter. The quote is, "The low sun through the door, the only illumination of this area. She took note of a hallway in front of her and a door on either side, both closed." And so this one is obviously the most me it could be. I'm very into kind of like post-apocalypse, particularly zombie stories. A whip that I have right now is zombies. So while I'm excited about this, I think that it will probably fall better into a longer piece. And two, I don't think it's really pushing me out of my comfort zone, which I'd kind of like to do with this challenge, I think. So while you might think this is one that's definitely moving on, I'm not so sure yet. Sprint number 4, the gist: one woman is leading the other to their downfall in a very tangible way. There is an entity awaiting a sacrifice in this building, and the woman can tell something is up. The quote: Dana continues to pull Martha through the grass. Soon their feet find purchase on a stone walkway that leads up to a veranda. And so this one's fun. I think this scene happens later in the story. I think we need to like build some tension as to like where these two women are going, and then kind of the reveal is that it's not a romantic getaway of any sort. It is leading her into a sacrifice. Now, like, the other option is that this is the beginning and the story is like her getting away from it. But I think it makes more sense for this to kind of be like the climax almost. If we decide to go this direction, or if I come back to it if we don't. Finally, Sprint 5, the gist: two cops fight over waiting for backup before one decides she's entering, whether her partner follows or not. The quote: It's a small mudroom with dirty boots on the ground, coats and sweaters haphazardly tossed, and fast food garbage scattered on the floor. So this one, it like really follows that like copy trope of like not waiting for backup, and one of the partners being reluctant while the other one is feeling kind of like gung-ho to go in. This one, I think, has potential to move on. Again, I have had this idea to move it back in like more of a horror direction, because it's like unanswered currently about who is in the house. The direction that is going is that somebody has been kidnapped or is being held hostage in some way, shape, or form. But my brain has said, let's go horror again, and whatever is being trapped is maybe actually dangerous and should be trapped. So again, like, I feel like that like really has some teeth to it as far as being a short story. Because short stories tend to have like a very like shocking twist at some point, or at least that's what I've noticed. Kind of like the best ones are, or the ones that I enjoy the most, kind of have some sort of like wah at the end. And so my brain has been kind of like just like in the background coming up with ways that these stories could like kind of flip at the end, and they're all turning up horror on me. And so I think that might just have to be the direction that we go. Maybe these stories don't end up being that different. And maybe I have to try again at some point, but we're going to continue running with these stories. Moving on to actually phase 2. Actually, no, I still haven't actually decided which ones are they going to be. So we have to choose 3. I feel like I'm really interested in turning that domestic violence one into some sort of possession story, so I think that one's going to make it through. I feel similarly about the last one. Yeah, so I'm leaning towards Sprint 5, Sprint 2, and Sprint 4, I think. I think those are the ones. I think Sprint 4 will be interesting to work through because I think that this should be later on, whereas the other 2, I think this scene is going to be kind of the first scene. Oh, wait, no, that was a lie. Oh, yeah, no, that is correct. So yeah, I think we're going to go 2, 4, 5. So just as a quick reminder, that is the domestic violence one, the kind of like leading into a sacrifice one, and then the 2 cops one. Okay, so now I can actually talk to you about phase 2 and how I generally outline and how it's going to look for you guys. I very often start my outlines in a notebook the same way that I very often start my writing from sprints in a notebook. This time I am going to go with my notebook, at least for now. What I'll probably do is like the first part of my outlining will be in my notebook, and then we'll clean it up and put it into a document, because I generally do kind of like a two-phase outline anyways, where I do kind of a brain dumping, asking myself all of the questions, not organized, throwing information down on the page, and then I usually organize it into something that I can actually reference and know where all of those pieces are. Now, today I don't have a setup for anything overhead. I don't have a great setup for that as it is. I will give you a look into the Book of Secrets either tomorrow or the next day with one of the other outlines. So today you won't get a look in the Book of Secrets, but I will try to kind of like vocalize some of the things that I'm thinking about and writing down. Um, and like I said, I will give you a look into it. I'll choose a day and I will record inside. I think tomorrow it's supposed to rain, so I'll record inside at the table where I can have like a mediocre overhead camera. Which part of me wants to just start outlining like all of them today, just like brain dumping all of my information for all of them. I know that that probably sounds crazy, but because they're all like really fresh in my head, I feel like I might just like have ideas coming out all over the place. This might end up being like a three-phase outline because of that, but I'll pick one to kind of focus on. And I think that should be sprint number 2, the domestic violence turned possession. Um, just because I feel like I've been thinking about that one the most. That's the one that I've been drawn to the most. And so let's start there. So this be the Book of Secrets. This is where all of Inktober lives. I'm just gonna get started. I'm not gonna start a timer. If this ends up getting a little too long or my computer starts to die, then we'll deal with it then. I still have over half, actually just about half of a battery right now, so I'm going to try to move you back a little bit. Or not really you, you're up there. But I need room. I need to get all comfy and cozy with myself here. So I'm going to title this page Sprint 2, but if ideas for the other things come out, I will just make note of it. And that's part of the reason that I like doing this like kind of like messy planning part in a notebook, is because I can do arrows and stuff. And I mean, in theory, I'm sure there are programs where I can do that, or I could like do it in GIMP or something like that, like a photo editor or an Illustrator. But it works well for me to do it in a notebook. It's just how my brain works. I grew up I grew up with computers, but there wasn't like not every kid had like a laptop kind of thing. Like we did a lot of writing by hand, and so and I think this is probably still true for people where like there's something more tangible with a pen and paper than there is with a keyboard. Okay, so sprint number 2. We'll see when you see into the Book of Secrets if you can even read anything I write anyways. So, get the gist down, to, and then show up, and here, a violence inside, particularly smashing plates and yelling. I think this is going to change a little bit from the way that it is in the sprint, because I say that like they hear like stomping and like maybe screaming into a pillow, which I already kind of hated, and now the new direction that this is going to go, I think it doesn't really make sense. So that's kind of like first scene. So the questions I have are who smashed the plates and why? Um, what is the wife doing in the kitchen? What is the husband doing upstairs? Um, what do the two women think is happening? What are they going to do about it? Um, Okay, so then the direction that we're going is someone's possessed. Who? Um, Now, obviously, this could go one of two ways. So in this planning stage, I'm gonna kind of like look at the two different directions we could go. So if we go wife, and then if we go husband, um, I am partially leaning toward wife because I think the idea that when she comes to the door, they take her like strange smile as being relief. But if I can signal to the readers that it's actually kind of like an eerie smile, that could be a really fun thing to do, an interesting exercise to attempt to do that. Um, and I feel like it's like a little unexpected because I think the second that people see a story about plates smashing in a kitchen, knowing there's a husband and wife in there, there's like a very obvious leap and then a very obvious opposite. Like obvious, like I either the husband is hitting the wife or the wife is hitting the husband kind of thing. And then I guess there's like a third option where they're both just like very angry. Maybe they're both smashing plates and they're both yelling. Uh, but I think it, especially with like two women friends coming up to the door, and then like this like the wife coming over and acting like a little bit weird. Like I think people are thinking a particular thing. Um, However, I think the husband being possessed after some sort of like mistaken spell or ritual is also interesting. However, I think maybe people will immediately start thinking about obsession. Um, and I'm having this thought just now, and so I think I don't want to go that direction. Uh, so I'm actually just going to write that down. Too much like obsession to have the husband be off kilter because of wife's ritual spell. That might even be why that idea is in my head. So now the question is, if the wife's possessed, how did that happen and why? Um, and is it possible that the friends maybe already knew something was off, or is this something that recently happened? Oh, and then there was the third option where like neither of them is possessed and this is a haunting story. I think I want to run with possession. Um, so that means that like the husband is upstairs like freaking out about like who this woman is. So it's recent. It's got to be recent. Who this woman is because this isn't his wife. Um, who is this woman? It's not my wife. And so at some point he needs to get across to the two women that there's something wrong with her. Meanwhile, whatever entity is possessing her knows that women support women and knows that these friends are going to back up the woman. And so she's going to, like, the entity is going to try to push the idea that uh, the husband's the problem. Meanwhile, the husband is probably, like, scared out of his skin because, like, is this some sort of doppelganger situation? Is she possessed? Is she ill? Like, why is she acting so strangely? So who smashed the plates and why? I think that's going to be the wife. Uh, why? I'm still unsure. I'm gonna put down like possession as like the overarching reason. Um, what is the wife doing in the kitchen? You would think she's cleaning up, but that's what the wife would be doing. What would the entity be doing? And are we going to see that? The assumption is that she's cleaning or cooking, in some way setting up, but the entity is not. It's something. What is the husband doing upstairs? Frantically trying to figure out how to get the women on his side and prove he's not abusive. What do the two women think is happening? Obviously, they think it's DV and assume husband is aggressor. What are they going to do about it? Honestly, probably nothing. That's what most people would do in this situation, right? Like they're going to try to check in with the wife, but ultimately nothing. Like of their own volition. Um, that is until the husband tries to like pull them to the side and be like, "This isn't her. Like she's possessed. We need to do something." So I guess like the next question then is, who is this entity? Why and how? Because I do fear a little bit here that we're going to accidentally tell a story that is saying like women do this to themselves or something like that, and I definitely don't want to be telling that story. So I think we need like a good reason that she is possessed, um, and it can even be like a previously battered woman. And we don't even have to say that he is not abusive. Maybe he is also abusive, uh, and maybe like it comes around like full circle. Like maybe it is even that like maybe she does still do like a spell or ritual, but and it does go wrong, but she's the one who ends up possessed, and is possessed by like a previously battered woman uh, who is either trying to get revenge on uh, like any man, or did kill her abuser and like has now died and comes back, or is an entity that protects women, and has entered her body and will take care of the man. And that could be kind of like a secondary twist. So like we get to the point where we reveal that she's possessed, uh, and then we're all like rooting for the husband, and then we find out that actually he is abusive, and then we're all rooting for the wife again. That is a possibility. So we could say entity that protects women, or previously battered woman seeking revenge slash protecting. Again, it's not how you spell again, but that's okay. So we kind of have like three different directions we can go with this possession. Are there any questions that we haven't answered that we have written down? We have a partially answered question. Uh, yeah, it's the what is the entity doing? Or maybe does the entity like leave the body? That's a question. Does the entity leave the body slash leave control? Um, or does it just like hide well, and so like it does go in and like clean up the plates, put the casserole in the fridge or in the oven or whatever. Another question here is, are there more guests coming? Because I think there are, based on what was written in the script or in the sprint, but does it remain that way? I guess like secondarily to that, like what's the occasion? Um, an interesting thought. If we go with the idea that the entity uh, is one that protects women, which I think I decided without really deciding, then it would be interesting to have this be like the first year anniversary of their marriage or something like that. Um, because then like the occasion is supposed to be celebrating like their happy relationship. Uh, but it turns out like she's been hiding that it's not a happy relationship. Um, and so like at this anniversary, like everything eventually falls apart. So if more people come, then there's going to be two groups of people going around, possibly talking about the incident. The husband will be looking for help from all of the guests. Meanwhile, the two women are going to be going around like, hey, like, keep an eye out because there was like a big fight going on when we showed up. Uh, it could be nothing, but like we heard plates being smashed kind of thing. So I think we're gonna go yes, first year anniversary. Um, Now I fear this is getting to be maybe a little too much for a short story. We'll see how I can work it in. But POV, I think now needs to definitely be third because otherwise I feel like we'd have to do dual POV, and I don't want it to be close third either, which means we can see into the kitchen and we can see upstairs, which is fun and also generally not the way that I write. So POV I think needs to be like omniscient third, um, because throughout the party, both husband and women will be looking for help from other guests. Basically, the gossip mill is going to be crazy, and then at some point, the entity is going to show itself. Now, does the entity show itself during the party, or does it wait until most of the guests are gone? And so I've had another idea because if we're going with the idea of an entity that protects women who are being abused by their partners, there are a few things that we could play around with. There could be other couples that have abusive tendencies or are abusive couples. Um, and so the entity starts getting kind of like in a rage about being surrounded by so many like bad partners. The other question is this an entity that is specifically protecting women who get abused, or is it people who get abused? And either way, is it like, does it care who the abuser is? So like, is it only women being abused by men and therefore only protects against men? Or can it be like anyone being abused by anyone and it's just like a protector of abused people? Then another interesting question is it a protector of abused adults, or will it also possess like abused children? Now, I think I'm going to go with it's like romantic relationship abuse. And I think like not that any of it will come up, but I think it is like anyone against anyone. So like there happens to be like a gay couple and one of them is abusing the other one. I think the entity would get upset about it. And I think this entity is maybe like sensitive to it. So anything that is like that could be viewed as toxic even if the relationship is generally healthy and it's just like a one-off thing, or there's just like a fight that's happening, like an argument that's happening, like it still like affects the entity. And so maybe there are just like a bunch of little like pain points and the entity eventually like cannot control itself. That's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna go with during pain points of other couples, like irritates the entity, uh, and it begins lashing out. The other thought that I was having originally, maybe we'll still go this the direction, is if it was going to be after the party, then I wondered if it would like if the women ended up believing the husband at the entity would then be angry at them as well. Ooh. Okay, so I forgot that I had that idea, so we're not actually going to necessarily go with that. This is this one, and then this one is this. Uh, the women believe the husband, and I mean, he's not wrong. And the entity flashes over. I think that's the like planning part. We need a timeline, like a scene by scene, and kind of like some details about the characters. Yeah, I think I maybe didn't give myself enough time for outlining purposes. So we still need a character list. So how many guests do I think we can handle? So there's obviously 4 characters already. I don't think I want to add in more than another 4 characters. I feel like that might be like too much. That's like 4 couples. So we have, let's just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have the possessed wife, and the husband. And then we have uh, lady friend 1. I think they all have to be couples, I think. Because like this could be a queer couple, or it could just be like maybe there's like a triad of like best friends, and these are like the other 2 with the wife best friends. Um, I have no problem with them being a queer couple. I just feel like I tend to like try to like push in queer couples too, which is like maybe not like a bad thing, but uh, so then I think the other 4 need to be like distinct characters that kind of like fulfill some sort of uh, like piece of the puzzle. There needs to be a couple that is like currently in an argument. So let's go argument couple 1 and argument couple 2. And then we just need, maybe then we have like a very like healthy looking couple. Not that the argument couple can't be healthy. You're allowed to have arguments in healthy relationships. Uh, oh, maybe we call them like the lovebirds. Maybe it's like a very new relationship. So let's go lovebird 1. Lovebird 2. We don't need to like fully flesh these people out. It's a short story. We're not going to get to know them very well. So we'll come up with names for them, and like that's kind of like it. Especially for a first draft, we're just going to figure out like what role they play at the party. Uh, so then timeline is kind of like scene 1 is women show up here, right? Then women in living room, and then kind of like sub scenes to that is like wife in kitchen and husband upstairs. And we'll kind of just get like a brief look into their like interiority maybe. Third will be kind of like the scene where everybody else shows up. And within that, oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to stop soon because my energy saver just turned on, which means my battery is starting to die. So everybody shows up, and like the beginnings of gossip, and then after everybody shows up, I think the husband comes down. Okay. I might work on this a little bit more, tell you about kind of like what else I've come up with when I start recording tomorrow for the next outline. So I think we're going to go like written outline, written outline, written outline, and then like tidy all of them up kind of in the 4th outfit. So we'll see how all of that goes. Yeah, I think that's it for now. Um, I'm going to probably go inside, maybe work on this a little bit more this evening, uh, and yeah, we'll look into the Book of Secrets tomorrow, I think, with an inside overhead because I think it's supposed to rain. I'm gonna check for you. Yeah, it's supposed to rain. It's raining all day tomorrow. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it does seem like the whole day. Um, so you'll definitely get a look at like how I'm writing this and like drawing my arrows, and hopefully we'll get one that is like very haphazard. Uh, but yeah, that's it for today. So I will see you tomorrow. Yeah, I guess let's get into it. So this is not where we began. This is where we began. So this is just like all of the like questions and answers that I had like while we were going through that kind of like figuring out what this story even is. Um, and then kind of like the first cleanup without all of the details is just like a quick like character list and then a timeline. The things that I kind of added to the timeline after yesterday were just like a couple scenes to get to like the end. The end scene, I think I'm going to leave it kind of as a cliffhanger if we get to finishing this story in the challenge, which is going to be kind of like the entity loses like control of itself um and lashes out and like kills the husband and uh then like the final thing is kind of the entity turns to the two women who have by this point realized that or like come to the conclusion that like the husband wasn't the abuser because they've realized that there's something wrong with their friend. And so the entity is like, give me one reason not to do you too. Um, and so we kind of like leave that open as to whether or not the two women are able to talk themselves out of it, prove to the entity that like they were on the wife's side, um, and that it's actually like the entity that turned them against. But whether or not that part gets written, I'm not sure. I'm leaning towards the cliffhanger of like letting people figure it out, but I feel like there needs to be enough setup um, to get to that point. So I guess now I have to decide which sprint we're going to do next. It's between sprint 4 and 5. I'm going to leave one more page here just for any final notes for that sprint. Sprint 4 is the witch's house. Is that the one that I decided we were doing? I, so I think the first important thing is that uh, the scene we wrote is near the end, not the initial scene. And then quick description of what happens in the scene. So I just said one person is leading another to be sacrificed against their will. So my first question is, who is the sacrifice for? And what's its purpose? Um, I guess kind of like a very broad question is what led up to this. Um, and kind of like along the same line is like how long has I'm just gonna call it person A. I know they have names, but this will actually help keep me in line, I think. How long has person A been working for entity? Kind of like before or after relationship started. Oh wow. Don't talk about my writing, okay? I guess kind of, I mean, this is kind of answer or asking this question, but to me like what is the purpose is like what does like the entity get out of it? So like this question is like what does person A get out of it? I feel like once we answer this answer becomes clearer. And then this is less question and more statement, but list of signs. It's a witch's house. I'm gonna put witch's house in quotation marks. I guess one of the easiest ways to answer a lot of these questions is to like choose a theme. Like what is this what like on a in a broader sense, what is this story about? It doesn't make sense for it to be about love. Um, so I guess like what are other reasons people sacrifice someone? It could be about love, actually. It could be sacrificing person B for like someone else to come back, um, or to get someone else back. It doesn't even have to be someone dead. It could be like a love spell for the one that got away in some way, shape, or form. That's kind of interesting. Obviously, it could be a sacrifice for money or power. What else would someone? I mean, it could also. I mean, I guess that ends up still being for power. I was gonna say, like sacrifice for, like just like for the entity that they're worshiping. I guess we have landed on the fact that it's an entity and not like a group, although it could still be a group sacrificing to this entity. It could still be a cult. There could still be other people in the witch's house, which I think also differentiates it from the possession story that we're working on. So is this a group or is it just person A? I kind of like this idea of, um, I feel like usually the like getting like bringing someone back is like bringing someone back from death. So like they've lost someone and therefore kind of the theme is grief. Um, but the idea of getting someone back from their past who hasn't passed is kind of an interesting idea. I don't know that I've seen that before. I'm not saying it doesn't exist because I think most things exist already. But I don't know, that feels like a fun thing to play around with for some reason. So then I wonder, is it actually getting someone back? is it an obsession with somebody that they're just trying to get the attention of for the first time? I kind of like the idea of this person just kind of being obsessed with people. Again, like I worry that we're running into like the movie obsession, um, which like I don't want to do, and I don't feel like this is that similar to that, but I worry that that's kind of influencing um, my brainstorming process a bit. And then we have to think like, is there some sort of big twist at the end? Because I did just have the idea that this person goes through all of this work to bring this person to sacrifice, and they're not actually going to get what they want. The person that they're bringing it to is actually just a cannibal. um, and I think if we go that direction, there has to be some element of um, them like person A loving person B, but being willing to sacrifice them for whatever it is that they think they're going to get. So I do think that that pushes it in a direction of fame, fortune, power. But so then like not only do they not get what they want, they also like lose someone that they love. This is a fun idea, I think. Is there something wrong with me? I think that might be the way to go. So just person A. Um, who's the sacrifice? So PA thinks it's a demon or something that they're making. Oops, that they're making a deal with. Um, but actually cannibal. Wait, what's that Shia LaBeouf thing? Because I just like that just like popped into my head. Real something something cannibal Shia LaBeouf. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Um, and then obviously like the purpose for the demon is like uh getting a soul, but it's actually getting food. And so this one is actually like not supernatural. It is just fucked up people. And I kind of love that for us. We took a story that wasn't supernatural and turned it supernatural, and then we took this story that was going a supernatural direction and now is definitely no longer. It's just people who are messed up. Um, fun. Okay. What led up to this? How long has person A been working for the entity? That's a really interesting. Ooh, yeah. So like, how did they meet the cannibal? How did they get pulled into this? What made them believe? I think it's got to be before the relationship started, and they start the relationship to get them to the cannibal. And so like it's not originally a relationship of love, but they like fall in love with. Okay, so before um started as a way to lure them, turned real. We're gonna have to kind of come back to the like what led up to this. We have to figure out um how did is this how you spell cannibal? Have I spelled it this? Yeah, I think that's how you spell it. Cannibal. How did cannibal find lure person A? What does person A get out of it? some sort of power. Um, Maybe they literally believe they get like magic out of it. Like the entity will help them with whatever spell work they're attempting to do, the way that people like work with their gods, or work with their deities, or work with the energies of the world. They think that this is just going to like open a well of metaphysical power. And that kind of like answers the questions of like how they get lured, because this has to be someone who is preying on um, the uninitiated, we'll say, of like witchcraft practitioners. So maybe you just like found on Facebook. Yeah, it does. It almost feels like that feels dated, but like at the same time, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I don't know, like, because I think most people who are using Facebook are older, but I also don't think that there aren't people like my age still regularly using Facebook, and anybody can get scammed. And then this list will put somewhere else. And this actually makes that list even more fun in a way, because it it is like whatever this cannibal person thinks would make somebody think that this is a witch's house. Okay. Found on Facebook is, I mean, maybe that's the title. Maybe the title is found on Facebook. Okay, so really now the question comes down to timeline. There aren't a lot of characters in this. I think there really will just be three characters. If this were a longer work, uh, and I could always adapt it to be. I think this is fine as a short story, but I do think I could adapt this to be a longer story, and we could have, you know, the people that are like trying to like stop person A from believing this, whether it's because they're skeptical or it's because like they're more seasoned and realize that this is not real, um, or something like that. We could add in a lot of characters. We could really beef up the story, but for our purposes of writing a short story, I think the three characters is enough. Maybe some like extremely mild side characters that happen just in the beginning that are like other people that person A interacts with on Facebook, like right before they find this cannibal's post. Hot witches in your area? It's another. Maybe powerful witches in your area. Oh yeah, and it's like a witch like taking on an apprentice. And so person A is this apprentice. Powerful local witches. I don't know. We don't need a title right now. That's just very fun. I'm suddenly very excited about this story. Okay, we needed less room on this one apparently. So let's talk timeline. Uh Obviously kind of the first thing that needs to happen is uh person A um is searching Facebook for um just like witchcraft tips maybe. Uh and comes across Powerful witch. Powerful local witch looking for apprentice. I could date this even further and be like Craigslist. What's the modern like, is there a modern Craigslist? Is Craigslist still a thing? Somebody tell me. We could maybe just do Reddit too. So like let's like Facebook could be something else. It could be Reddit. I mean, really, it could be any social. I feel like kind of like the sketchier the better, which is why, or like, I don't know, like Kijiji. Is Kijiji still a thing? God, I'm old and out of touch. Um, I feel like I need to actually ask some people if Craigslist is still a thing, because this feels very Craigslist, right? Um, but powerful local witch looking for apprentices is fine for now on Facebook. Um, and then like I think the next thing is just like the first meeting. And I think this needs to be like very low key. Like it needs to just be like at a cafe. Like maybe like a local kind of like spooky vibes cafe or something like that. Um I think this is gonna happen in a city. But a city where like it's not difficult to like get to the boonies. I don't know if there are cities where like it is difficult. I don't really know what other places are like, but like Ottawa, like you don't have to go very far to be in an like in an area where there aren't a lot of people, if that makes sense. So like you could totally find like this abandoned witch's house, like not a very long drive away kind of thing. Yeah, so let's go like first meeting and then like time passes and it's like they've been apprenticing. This is a long con for this cannibal. However, it's quite possible that they've got like multiple people on the line, if you will. Um, yeah. Okay. So first meeting cafe, low key, very normal. Third is because this is a short story, we're skipping so much. Like we're skipping ahead so far. We're talking like, I don't know, maybe 6 months down the line, like 6 months of apprenticeship. The ask for a human sacrifice. And we'll give the idea that animal sacrifices have happened. Um, kind of like they've been like working up to this point. And so then do we do something like first date? And then like I don't think it should be a very long relationship, but it needs to be long enough that this person becomes attached. Oh, maybe we should do like first date, third date, special romantic date through the woods. I'm gonna say realizing emotions are building, need to get it over with. Um, super special hiking date. Um, person B realizes something is off. And this is where the sprint comes in. I am fearing all like both of these so far are still like a little too long, but we'll see what happens. We might have to like cut out the third date and have the realization here. So like this might have to happen like during the first part of the hike maybe. And then like enters house, uh ties up person B with cannibal's help. And then, like, really, it's just like sacrifice happens, cannibal starts eating. Uh, Maybe like person A goes to like also eat to like take care, like to take part in the ritual, and they're like, no, you don't get to eat. And then they're like, where's my power? And the cannibal's like, um, and then, I mean, maybe we like end it on like they're like very clearly about to fight. Yeah, I don't know. Ritual, cannibal begins eating. Person A tries to join. Cannibal says, "Nuh-uh, this is my food." And it's like, uh, how do I gain my power? Uh, you don't. Thanks for the meal. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's something missing here. The idea is a lot of fun, but I feel like it's missing some sort of lesson or purpose or something a little bit greater than just the like plot. But maybe there doesn't need to be more. Maybe I'm making it out to be more important than it needs to be. A possible illusion to fight. Or, like, can we do it again? But me too. And then, like, they become cannibals together. And it's just a story about uh trying each other's hobbies. Oh no. Oh no. So then there has to be something about person A loving both of them, like falling in love with the cannibal and also falling in love with the sacrifice. Or maybe there is no falling in love with the sacrifice. Maybe it is only falling in love with the cannibal. And like the weirder it gets, the more she loves the cannibal. This is gonna have to sit in my brain for a little bit, I think. But I like it. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to sit with it for a little bit. Find out if Craigslist is still an appropriate reference. I think Facebook's fine. I mean Reddit would be fine also, I think. But I think Facebook groups is totally a place where this like could occur. I hope that this actually never occurs, but you know, uh, other like scammy things on Facebook just like feels right. Maybe we need to come up with like a different way to like lure the person in. Maybe it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. I mean, it could just be a friendship, and then it isn't as difficult, I think. We don't really have to worry about like the first third date, like even like the first the first get together could just be this hike. Um, so that like compresses like these three things to being okay, not I mean obviously we have to change um from the sprint. But not romantic, just friends. Just a hike. And then like the sacrifice person B is kind of like in a really weird situation here because on the one hand it's like why did they trust this random person to like take them out on a hike. But at the same time, like people do that all of the time. But like on the other hand, like they're keen enough that they start to notice things awry. So I think there needs to be we need to make two lists. There needs to be a list of like the things that the sacrifice is noticing as they're working their way down the trail. Um and then also the list of things that like they notice. I mean, I guess this is the same list, but it begins earlier. Um they start to notice the things like around the actual house. So yeah, we still need that list of things sacrifice notices as the hike progresses. And not all of these need to be figured out right now. They might kind of just like come to me as we write. Um, but definitely get a start. Uh, I think that the ones that we used, not all of them are going to be great. And then also that whole idea of like the ivy not being ivy, I think it probably will just be ivy now. I think like what one of the like obvious ones is like the trail stops being obvious. Like trail markers gone, narrower, overgrown, um, fallen trees, general like disrepair. Like it's not a maintained trail anymore. No longer maintained trail. I think up until that point, like they're just having fun. And not all of the things need to be like they don't even have to be real. It can also be like signs that like her anxiety is going up just because of the situation. Like there is just like the gut feelings and those feelings are making her like see things that aren't actual signs. So like the noticing of like eyeballs on birch trees. Um the kind of like gut feeling, high anxiety, putting more um stock in just generally creepy things. Birch tree eyeballs, skittering critters. And then, of course, like once we get to the house, like the house itself, creepy. Um, these have to be things that person A thinks denote, like a powerful entity in their master. Um, and also things that like this other person is like that's just creepy. Like maybe it is that like they also have knowledge of like what a witch's house might look like. But like it needs to be like very stereotypical because it's just a cannibal. Um, and I feel like maybe I struggle with this a little bit because I feel like I might be like a little more tapped into what this might look like. Because like my note while I was writing was that the door's going to be purple, but I don't know that everybody knows that like a purple door means a witch's house. Uh, but at the same time, like I think if you Google things, like it might show up, so it might be enough to be kind of like the stereotype with just a little extra like zing of like this is real for like someone who might be skeptical of like whether or not their master is a real witch. So I think we're gonna stick with Purple Door. Um, we gotta have some sort of hanging uh like sigils, witches bells, uh, sigils on trees, stones, walls, like sigils or runes or whatever. Um, a besom, a broomstick on the veranda. Pointing downward, of course, so it's inviting people in. I'm gonna say like witches' bells, ladders. These are like the names that like somebody who would know what they are and make them. But like this is really just like any sort of like I'm using it to say that it's like any sort of like you know in every horror movie that has a witch or something has like stick things hanging from trees and stuff. That's kind of what I'm going for when I say like witches' bells, witches' ladders, um, hanging bones and feathers and stuff. I think the herb garden is good. Maybe there are like signs or some that like are like very clearly like I mean oh that's actually kind of fun doing ones that are like the like olden terms for things. So like Eye of Newt, which I believe is mustard seed. But there's like a bunch of those signs. Use Eye of Newt style terms on those signs. That's fun. I like that. I think that's enough to kind of get me going here. Yeah, I think we're going like Bumble BFF. Facebook and Bumble BFF. Um okay. Yeah, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. Okay, so obviously this needs to be prettied up so that it is a little bit more referenceable. So we will do that with all of the outlines, but we will leave the third outline for tomorrow. I don't know if we'll do it all overhead like this again, or if I will be outside in nicer weather. I think the outline I'll do entirely with you so you get like the thought process of that, but the cleaning up um maybe you won't have to sit through all three of those. We'll see. Uh yep, that's it. So I will see you tomorrow. Welcome into day 3 of the outlining portion of the writing challenge. I don't think I need to do a big to-do. Obviously, we're outside. Obviously, I don't have the overhead. We're just gonna talk through this one. And then the next section is going to be us making these outlines a little more referenceable and finishing up a couple things on them. In particular, we need to work on some I mean, not really. I found we were talking about the herb garden for the witch's house story, and I found a bunch of resources for coming up with the signs that are going to be in there. Particularly because I think it will be fun to like have like Eye of Newt, but then there's a resource that I found that lays out different parts of plants and like what uh, part of the body of the animal it lines up with, and then like different plants and just like things like that, so I can kind of like mix and match and create some that people like haven't heard as much, as well as a couple of resources that just have ones that I hadn't heard of before. And so I think that will be interesting. But right now, we're going to get into sprint number five's outline, which is the two cops. Um, the biggest thing with this is going to be figuring out like what makes this one different. And to nobody's surprise, my immediate thought is that like we set the reader up to think that they're going in to save like a kidnapped child or something like that, but it turns out that it's like an evil entity of some sort. But I do want to try to make this one different, so I think I want to try to keep it like in the like cop thriller genre. Um, or like cop procedural genre, but how do we make that a short story, and how do we make the like trope of the partner running in um different and like purposeful and specific? uh Now a thought that I just had is that maybe the rest of the story isn't about going through the house. Maybe something like terrible happens in the house. And then the rest of the story is like the consequences of that terrible thing. So yeah, there's okay, so let's get the gist down. The gist is that cop one rushes in after fighting partner on waiting for backup. So the question that we first must answer before we answer anything else is what makes the trope specific and different for this story. Uh, and I'm gonna write down these options. Victim is actually a danger. House is a trap. Story is about aftermath. Backup never shows up. That's kind of interesting, because like where'd the backup go? Why did the backup not show up? Is it like some sort of interpersonal thing where they're like, just let these cops go in and like hope they die, maybe, or something like that? Or it could be that some other tragic thing has happened and these two cops have no idea that it's happened, and all the other cops are otherwise preoccupied with this, somehow unable to make it to them. If we put the house in a place that's difficult to get to, there could be like a natural disaster that makes it impossible for backup to get there. And we could be kind of like switching back and forth between those two POVs. Again, multiple POVs in a short story is difficult to pull off, not impossible, definitely doable. Lots of short stories do it. It just is like you have less room for each POV, because you still need to keep the story short. So oh, that's kind of the way that I want to go, though. Now that I've sat and thought about it a little bit, I mean, all of these are interesting ideas. I think victim is actually a danger is just too similar to everything else that we're currently doing. House as a trap is still just a trope. Um, the stories about the aftermath is definitely interesting, definitely up my alley, because the aftermath is clearly like something bad happened, and I love to write about bad things happening for some reason. That's always where my stories end up. Something bad is happening, something bad has happened, something bad will happen. But backup never showing up and keeping it lodged in reality is interesting. So I feel like I'm really between these two ideas, the it being about the aftermath of whatever terrible thing happens and the backup never showing up. Oh, that's so hard. I mean, in theory, I can write both these stories whenever I want. But we have to pick one for now. Which one excites me the most? I think backup never showing up. And I think that it's obvious why. Uh it kind of helps fulfill the survival situation zombie one that I decided to leave in the dust. We could even like do something like that. There's actually there's a book that's like a choose your own story. It's not a choose your own adventure brand, but it is like a choose your own way through the story. And the opening scene um is like a great like depiction of like a sudden zombie thing happening. Okay, so but like natural disaster makes sense. It could also be like national security. And so just like cops are pulled away from less uh like important things. And so like backup just never shows up, and of course like they were expecting the cops to stay outside, so they're not really like worried. They're like, don't go in until backup's there. Uh, and so they're expecting them to be safe because backup never showed up, but of course they went in. Now they're in like a terrible situation. Backup's not coming. And maybe like they radio in at some point that they've entered. And so then like we see the panic of like the people trying to get to them. So the thing that's kind of like coming to mind is that the house is on an island. And there's only one way over, it's one bridge, and that bridge gets like washed out or blown up or something. They cannot use that. And so obviously there are ways to get to the island. They can take a boat, they can take a helicopter, but trying to figure that out like takes extra time. And then they're also dealing with everything that happens because the bridge is gone. I think the bridge getting blown up is really interesting. Uh, I feel like that takes like a lot of uh, power. Uh, like you can't use like a couple sticks of dynamite. I mean, I guess it depends what kind of bridge we're talking about. Are we talking about small town, teeny tiny bridge, or are we talking like big old like Golden Gate? Um, because like in the like scenario of like I think it needs to be dangerous enough. So it needs to be a bigger bridge that there are like a lot of people who have like been hurt on the bridge, people have fallen into the water, like whatever, whatever. If the bridge gets like it doesn't have to be huge, but it needs to be big enough or maybe long enough. Okay, we got to do some research into bridges. This is the first time where we've said we have to do research. Research bridges. We're looking for like length, what it takes to knock them out, because we need a bridge that is big enough that it is a concern. If it's just like a little bridge, like 2 lane, um, like you can see the other side, I feel like there's not, and like it doesn't make enough sense that like nobody's going, because that's part of it, is like their attention is diverted as well as them not being able to make it. Now, we could set this up as like war times, and like that's the reason like the bridge gets blown up by a bomb. And so like there's suddenly this like, oh my god, like we're under attack. And so like everything's diverted, like military's coming in, like whatever, whatever. Uh, but I feel like maybe that's too much world building that needs to get done, because we need to set up like this war that's happening. Um, Not that like we couldn't just like pick a place that makes sense that war is happening already, but uh, I'm definitely picturing this less high stakes, but still very high stakes. Okay, I feel like I've said a lot and I haven't actually written a lot down. So thank you for being a sounding board, but I need to get some of these ideas on paper now. So we're going with this one. So backup never shows. Question is why? They literally can't. Bridge is out. And also their attention is now diverted to the danger, to the tragedy. That needs to come out because it's messing up my writing. Okay. And then like the third piece of this is that um, expecting them to wait for backup. They're not a priority. And so then things have to go like really bad, really fast in the cops area, like in our hostage situation or kidnapping situation or whatever it is. Things need to go bad, fast. And like maybe at like the first sense of danger, that's when they call in, and then that's when stakes everywhere go. So next question is what takes out the bridge? Options are explosion or flooding, right? Like either, I mean, I guess technically like wind. I guess we could write weather. So what does it take to knock out this bridge? I kind of, what am I doing? I think with my hair, apparently. I've been moving it around a lot. Also, it's crazy if I let it be. Um, so I think I want to go natural and not explosion. Although I think explosion's fun, and I think the idea of it being because a war suddenly breaks out is interesting, but I think wars don't suddenly break out. Obviously, like the first bomb gets dropped at some point, or like the first attack happens at some point. But I think we go with like weather takes it out. Maybe it's a NATO or hurricane, depending on where we put this. That way, like we have like water kind of fucking it up, we've got wind fucking it up, we've got rain fucking it up. Maybe it starts as flooding and turns into like a wash away. Um, it's gonna be weather. So, do we have any other questions? I mean, who are they? Who's the victim? And who is the criminal? My mind immediately goes to a child kidnapping. Other thoughts that I've had, because I was, one of the like early questions I had before we even got to talking about the outline was like, is it one person or is it many people? So it could be some sort of like trafficking thing going on also. Um, I'm sorry if you can hear whatever that is. It sounds like a lawnmower, but it's like, I think on like the other side, because I don't see it. So obviously this needs to be like a very dangerous situation. So I think a child kidnapping is actually, or child abduction is what I should, is the word I should actually be using. Um, I feel like that's incorrect. I feel like generally people who take a kid are not like not that they can't be super dangerous people, but I feel like these people need to be like very dangerous. The other thought that I just had is that I mean, there doesn't even have to be a victim because I had an interesting thought that this could be like a safe house for criminals, um, and so like they're actually going in because it's like this one criminal's house, and they think that it's only going to be him home, and then like they get inside and it's actually just like a boatload. It's like a little meeting of a bunch of criminals. Um, could be organized crime, but I feel like it's actually more fun for it to be a bunch of like individuals who like I don't know met in prison, and this is like and they've all like broken parole or maybe they've escaped or whatever, and like this is their safe house. Um, Now, we could technically tie this back to the bridge if we go back to Explosion. Maybe they got a demolition guy and they like had already set this up, hoping that it would like stop people from like finding them. But I feel like that isn't like the smartest thing because like you do the thing and then suddenly everybody's looking at that and trying to figure out who did it. So then like it kind of like points them towards that. Especially if this demolition guy has a signature that he refuses to get rid of, and so they know that it's him. Um, so that's a bad idea, I think. But the idea of there being like a boatload of criminals there instead of just one, and like there just like is no victim, like there isn't like an abduction or trafficking or anything like that. They were just going in to like arrest this guy, which also leaves the whole like not a priority. They don't think that there's as much danger there as there is. So it's again not a priority. But then we have to figure out like how that all works. And also, is there a happy ending? Because I feel like this just goes tragedy. Oh, I really don't know what to do with this now. Maybe the crime safe house is too much. I like the idea of like the victims being kind of dangerous. So like maybe some sort of trafficking thing is good. Um, and those people are like fearful of cops. Um, like as well as the people who are trafficking them. And so like they prove to be like a danger at first, maybe. Trafficking victims are. I feel like there's kind of like two directions that that goes is either they are people seeking sanctuary, like they're immigrants of some sort, um, or they're sex traffickers and the victims are. I think that's the direction we go. I think it's sex trafficking. And so obviously then the criminal is it has to be a ring of, like it can't be just one guy. It needs to be far more dangerous than that. So, uh, yeah. I don't think there are any other questions here. I think we just need to look at a timeline. So first scene is the sprint scene. And then we need to kind of like work through like them working through the house, finding the people, and then the criminals getting home. Um, and then we need to kind of like zip in the backup not showing up. I think I think the victims have also just happened to plan an escape for today. And maybe that's why they become a bit of an issue because like their plan is surprise. And so they think that it's, the guys coming in, but it's actually the cops coming in. So like there's like a kerfuffle before they realize who it is. Um, so yeah, I think I'm going to kind of, maybe I will zip them together now. Okay, so, um, kerfuffle when cops find victims. Um, realization. It's cops. And cops call it in. Other POV. The bridge being out. And telling them they're not coming. Or they weren't coming. Which then, of course, like within that is like, why didn't you tell us? And then the rebuttal of, we said don't go in. Until we got there. So then, back at the house, here, traffickers get home. Or come inside, whatever. And victims give the down low on what to expect. I think an interesting idea is for the cops to try to blend in because they're unsure, but the other option is for them to like continue leading the escape. So I think let's make this a happy story. Cops help lead the escape, and then like helicopter shows up. Too little, too late. I fear the whole idea of the bridge being washed out is kind of trivialized with that. There needs to be like more obstacle, I think. But maybe not. Again, it's a short story. I don't got a lot of time. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little worried that that's trivialized is all. That's like less of an obstacle than like I originally thought it was, I guess. But I think I still think it's a fun story. Especially with like the idea of like these people like overcoming their captors with the help of these two cops who definitely did a dumb by entering without, but at the same time, like what would have happened if they didn't? Like how does that story go otherwise? I don't know. I think just like within the writing, we need to like have enough obstacles of them like getting through the house and then like figuring out how to like break out and then like the actual like killing or capturing of the traffickers. Do I really need to do the research on bridges, or is it just plausible that the bridge can be taken out in weather? I think that's kind of like an interesting thing too. Is like at the beginning, okay, at the beginning, weather seems fine. Takes a very sharp turn, and that has to line up with something happening in the house. Something bad, ominous, happening in the house. Maybe like when they're on second floor, they hear see something, but the victims are in the basement. Maybe sounds are traveling through vents. And so like they think that they're getting close to something, and then like they find the sound through the vent, and then the rain starts. And then everything kind of just like happens really fast. Like as far as like the weather going and the bridge going. You know, it's really hard when like when you speak, you do a lot of onomatopoeia as description. It does not translate to writing very well. It makes it very difficult. You can't just be like, and then the bridge went. All right, I think that's the haphazard, brain dumpy outline part. I'm either going to be back later today or tomorrow to clean these up a little bit, throw them into a document so that they're like more easily referenceable. And then, unfortunately, one of them will go the way of the dodo in the next phase. Doesn't mean that I won't come back to it, because I am pretty excited about all of these. I'm not really sure which direction, like, which one's gonna get cut. Because they're all very fun ideas. These might all get written, who knows. Just not as part of the challenge, I suppose. With that, I'll see you back for the cleaning up phase, the This is actually an outline instead of a bunch of blah blah blahs. See you in a bit. Hi, I'm back. We're going to clean up some of the outlines that we've been working on. Basically, we're going to go from the kind of brain dump style outline and turn it into something that's kind of a summary and a timeline. Um, it'll depend a little bit on what information we need to put down, but probably it's going to be general gist, a timeline, and perhaps a character list depending on how many characters there are. So that's going to differ. I mean, we'll probably do it no matter what, but it's definitely more important for one of the three than the rest of them. Two of them, I suppose. Um, but they're going to look a little different for each one for sure. Okay. So I don't know how many we'll get done today. Uh, and like in this writing session, but I want to like walk through with my thoughts coming out my face, at least one of them, and then the other ones I might do either off camera or do without putting that much effort into it and like bringing attention to like important things. I don't know exactly what that's gonna look like yet. But I don't know if this video needs to be that long or cover that many outlines, if that makes sense. Uh, but we'll see. We'll see. So, do I want to start? Which one do I think will be the most interesting to follow? I think we'll just start with the first one that we did. So for Sprint 2, this was the nope, just one possessed person. Thanks for trying to change that on me. So, yeah, I'm gonna start by taking the jot notes that I have and just kind of like putting them on the page, and then I'll probably clean them up into like a summary or just like a more logical like order. So, wife is possessed. Oh, there's actually still an unanswered question here, which is what she's doing in the kitchen. But I think we'll worry about that when it comes to the timeline. Same thing with whatever the husband is doing. Two friends, assume. Husband is aggressor in ADB. Possessed by an entity. We never really decided if this was like previously a person or if it's some sort of like protective spirit or whatever. So that's something that we maybe still need to answer. What have I written? Oh, hold on. Possessed by an entity. His goal is to protect her against her abuser. We're gonna write this in. Did I hit enter? Yes. We're gonna write this in omniscient third, which I think is really fun, especially since it's not something that I usually write. I skipped some stuff here. It's a 1-year anniversary party for the couple. There are more people coming. Throughout the party, both the friends and the husband will be trying to get help for their two sides. Entity will show itself by the end of the party, but small things are noticed throughout. The friends leave the husband by the end. This calls their loyalty into question. Okay, so then we decided there's a guest list of 8 people. I'm gonna bring this down because I feel like not being able to see what I'm writing is messing stuff up. How did I get a 3 in there? Oh, there's supposed to be a 3 in there. Okay, so that reads, 2 women show up to the house party for a couple's 1-year marriage anniversary. As they're walking up, they hear a fight happening inside, which includes some dishes breaking. They wonder if they should continue to the door and ultimately do. The wife answers with a strange look on her face. The husband goes upstairs. Party ensues, more guests. Both husband and first 2 guests spend the evening trying to convince the other and other guests of the problem. The husband believes the wife is possessed or ill, and the friends believe he is abusing her. By the end, the 2 friends have seen the weird behavior and believe the husband. Throughout, the entity has been aggravated by other couples' arguments as well as the husband's presence. When the 3 of them approach the wife, the entity lashes out, kills the husband, and gives the women a chance to explain their loyalty. The story will be written in third omniscient, mostly so we can see what's happening in the kitchen and upstairs, as well as follow both husband and friends through the party. I think we hit everything that we needed to there. And I think this gives a generally good summary. So I want to name characters and maybe like a couple of jot notes about some specifics, and then write out a more bulleted timeline with some like writing notes. So let's go characters first. Okay, so the character list, we have the possessed wife, the husband, first guest, second guest, and then we're gonna have a lovebird 1, lovebird 2, and then we have arguing couple 1 and arguing couple 2. So we gotta come up with names, and this is honestly the hardest part. I hate all of the names that I come up with like during the sprints. They're all super basic. Not that there's anything wrong with using basic names, but and honestly, we're probably not going to get super into naming these people either, simply because most of them are very like small characters in the grand scheme of things, especially since this is a short story. So we are just going to go with the names off at the top of my head. Well, not quite off the top of my head, because usually the ones off the top of my head relate too much to somebody I know, and I don't want to use those ones. But then we kind of like just then I kind of just like let my brain like keep going. So and we technically have names for first and second guest. Any chance I'll remember them? No. Let me check. Katie and Julia. The 2 people absolutely in love with each other are going to be Maria and... Do I want to keep... So, brain immediately went, I should have like a queer couple, but I also don't want to like be comparing like a queer couple as like either the arguing or the lovebirds, and then a het couple as either the arguing or the lovebirds, because I think either way that's gonna like say something that I don't need to say. And so, unlike what I normally do, I am just gonna keep everybody het, I think. So let's go with Maria and Paul, and then let's go. Everything needs to start with a different letter, because otherwise things get confusing. And all that's coming to my mind are characters that I already have as characters in other current whips. Let's go Lauren. Oops. And Frank. Nope, Frank's literally in the other thing. What if we go Fran and Greg? Husband's name, David. Wife's name, Louise. So then let's give the, I mean, they're not all couples. Katie and Julia are just friends. Which, I mean, is maybe also a problem. I don't know. But the prompt made me do two women, and I had no idea where this was going to begin with. So I do want to give, just because they are kind of, actually, I'm going to do this, too, because I think we're going to separate them. Like, obviously, they have a relationship, but, like, within the story, I think they're serving very different purposes, whereas, like, the rest of the, like, groupings all kind of, like, serve a purpose together. So, we need to have, like, some creepy mannerisms that she does. There's got to be something weird about a smile. There's got to be like a deadness to her eyes. Not always, but when like when the entity is getting kind of like aggravated, like sharp movements. While entity is aggravated, sharp movements and like blunt word choice and tone. Just like a little meaner than she would normally be. And then so does that mean, do we say that like maybe when the, like maybe we make Louise like a very like sweet person otherwise, and so like there's a really stark difference between these two things? Because I mean, if like a kind of like bitchy person that is like a little extra bitchy, like people don't really like see the difference quite the same way. But also, I don't want to make her, like, too saccharine, I don't think. I think she just needs to be, like, a generally, like, kind or, like, maybe meek. Meek, quiet, kind. Oh my gosh. What am I doing? The husband is... Well, at this point, he's been very good at hiding who he really is. Physically affectionate to wife. Physically, but I think is like maybe obviously drawn to like gender roles or something. Or like, well, let's just call it toxic masculinity tendencies. I don't want it to be like really obvious because he's somebody who hides his real self. He doesn't like, he's never been angry in front of anybody else. he's never, you know, thrown things or punched walls in front of anyone except for his wife, kind of thing. Uh, Especially, like, at least these people, none of these people have seen that. Uh, and we established that, like, during the sprint, where what one of the girl or one of the women asks, uh, like, did you know he was angry like this? So then Katie and Julia, longtime friends, wife, like from high school. I don't think I need to make anybody like super specific. I just don't think that that's like a necessity, but like they can't be like non-entities either. I think they're both like successful in current careers. Uh, One is a teacher, and the other an accountant. Maria and Paul, they've been together for like 6 months. I might even have that written down somewhere. Um, Still in honeymoon phase. Very physically affectionate. Oh my gosh, why can't I spell? Toward each other, like constantly smiling, uh, saying goofy stuff. You know, we're gonna make them like very stereotypical, like in the honeymoon phase people, just because that's like their purpose in the story is to be like the one couple that isn't aggravating the entity. It's kind of like the couple that can like pull back the entity and like stops it from like lashing out too early. Whereas like Fran and Greg, they've been together like I'm gonna make them like a married like a couple of years, or like maybe just like together. Oops. Oh gosh. No, I'm gonna make them married. They're the old married couple, except they're not old and they're yeah. Anyways, married for 3-ish years. Uh, we're never gonna actually mention how long it is. This is just for us to kind of like understand the dynamic. Um, Arguing over something relatively stupid isn't the word. What inconsequential. But the tension is clear. Maybe it won't be something relatively inconsequential. I do also want to come up with something specific. Arguing over it needs to be something that can be triggered at the party. So maybe it has something to do with food. Um, my immediate thoughts are like way too deep seated of a problem. Maybe it's dishes or like general like tidying of house. Uh, but at the same time, like I want there to be moments of them like obviously being okay. Okay, and then we're gonna look at the timeline. Which is basically just going to be a list. Um, which is like kind of what we did with the summary, but at the same time, the information's going to be split up a little different. So let's call 1. This is women show up and here fight. 2 is women in living room whispering about the fight and the weird smile. And then within this, we're going to skip to see, I'm just going to say, see husband freaking out upstairs, and see wife, I think just cleaning up the broken dishes. Maybe she's confused. Doesn't remember it happening. And then the other note that I have already is that we want to be interiority of both. It's not really so much like what they're doing, but what they're thinking about while they're doing it. Then the next thing is kind of just like the other couples showing up. Greetings and passing on a potluck. Dishes. We'll maybe take some notes about like how them showing up like affects the overall environment. But I might just leave that for like what happens, like the discovery-ish part of the writing. It's not really discovery, but I mean it's the figuring out of the details when you have the big pieces figured out. So the next one is the husband returns. I do have a note here. It says clear tension between the friends and the husband. Clear tension between. I should be using their names between David, Katie, and Julia. The next one is kind of like with that. The husband approaches, David approaches Katie and Julia, and they have a hushed argument about their two sides of the story. The next one says speech, speech, speech. David and Louise are prompted to give a speech about their first year of marriage. Clear entity aggravation while David speaks. The next one says that the two arguing people, Fran and Greg, have an argument. Entity is struggling to hold on. 8 is the lovebirds are lovey. Maria and Paul have a moment of cute love that the entity sees, and this quiets it. Then in here it says that the husband approaches Katie and Julia, but I think Katie and Julia are gonna approach the husband and be like, hey, wait, like I've seen some weird shit, you might be right. And also the entity overhears, and this is the breaking point. Because it sees a loss of loyalty from the support it thought Louise had. Oops. And then the last one is like the entity reveals itself, kills the husband. Give me one reason not to do you too. The three of them approach these after the other guests leave, I think. That might change. It might happen while everybody is still there. I'm not sure. 3 of them approach Louise after the other guests leave. Entity lashes out, kills husband, turns on women, and asks, Owen says, give me one reason why I shouldn't do it. Why? And that's what cleaning up my, sure, it should be the story. No. Really, I just, like, when I'm, like, making an outline, especially for a short story, outlining something longer, I generally want more detail in it. But having some sort of, like, gist summary can be really helpful. I don't always do that, but it kind of gets, like, all of these ideas in, like, a logical order, instead of being kind of like haphazardly, like whenever I thought of the question or whenever I thought of the like idea. Characters are really helpful, especially for names, because I'm not like super attached to these characters. They're not like fully formed little guys running around in my head. And then just like a timeline of like the beats that I'm gonna hit, and like sometimes some like writing or craft notes. So like any time that it's like the entity, like talking about like where the entity is at, that's not really like part of the like a beat. It's not a plot point, but it is like an important aspect of what's happening. Same thing with like mentioning like I want to be like very clear about doing interiority in the second scene or the second beat, because I want to be very like in the husband's head and in the wife's head, like after that fight. Obviously there will be interiority of other characters throughout, but that's like a really important piece for me at this point. Like that needs to be there, and so I'm gonna write in that I think that that's like the focus of the scene. You might also focus on like purposes of scenes. So especially in longer works, like the scene is for atmosphere, this scene is for backstory. You might take note about when you want tension to be high and when you need that tension to break. And so like that's kind of what I'm doing with the like entity thing even is, we have like this entity that's clearly like starting to get to the point where it's going to like break out, and then we have that tension recede when when it sees that like a relationship can work. They see like that, it sees that nice relationship, and so it like holds on to its shit, but then it has a breaking point. The something that like you'll see different like coming up is just like other like lists of things that I don't want to like clog up the timeline with or something. So for the witch's house, the cannibal one, there's going to be like a list of possible herbs in the garden kind of thing. Or I think there's a list for the other one too. I suddenly smell wood smoke. And it's not my clothes this time. Oh, actually, that one just has two different lists. I don't think this one has a list in it. But that's it for now. Like I said, I'm not sure when or how I'm going to do the other two outlines. I feel like I've said a lot. I feel like my brain is not fully on today. It happens from time to time. So I'm just going to say goodbye for now, and we'll see what the rest of the video looks like. I will see you with the next outline.
Hi, hello. I am on my porch, but I don't have all of my equipment out here. I'm planning on keeping the talking to a minimum and just kind of creating the next two, or tidying up the next two outlines. This doesn't look too bad. I don't know what it sounds like. It might sound like trash, but outside it always kind of sounds off anyways, because usually somebody's air conditioner kicks on. yeah, I think that's it to say. I might jump in with some thoughts kind of as we go, but for the most part, I think I just want to get these outlines down, and then maybe we'll chat a little bit about them afterwards. I might have just changed the story. Because what if, instead of Martha being the one to die, Martha puts up enough of a fight and also has enough knowledge to speak to Hildy that she convinces her to just eat Dana instead? And then the question is, does Martha take part, or does Martha, like, take that minute to, like, leave? And then we do have the reveal that, like, the eating the person does give power, maybe? Or maybe we just leave it at there's a cannibal in the woods. Okay, I think I do want to go that way. Now that I've changed the story so much. Okay, so in the original outline thing, that's not really an outline, there's like new conflict brought about by Dana not being able to, or not being allowed to take part, and then we didn't really decide which way that would go, but it could go to a fight, or can we do it again? I'm not sure what ending is best. Maybe that just means that this story isn't ready. I don't know. Maybe for now, let's go. Endings, 1, 2, 3, I think. Okay, so clearly that story, this outline, isn't, like, quite ready yet. But we'll figure it out. Oh, and we didn't do the lists. Let's go back and do the lists. Let me see if I can find... Did I share these for myself somewhere? I don't think so. I found a couple of interesting resources to use. This is the one that I think is most interesting. Because, like, it's kind of like you can figure your own thing out. Particularly like the plant parts. So like if you're gonna take like the petal of a catmint, then it's going to be tongue of cat. Or if you want the leaves, let's just go across leaves of a peony, it's like a woodpecker's wings. And so I just think it's fun to like kind of come up with some of those that like people wouldn't necessarily have heard before. I found both of these on Pinterest. I don't know if I'll finish this in this sit down, but that's okay. Please. So I take that note to take notes during the timeline what the weather is like outside, because weather is like important to this story. When we look at character, things get a little funky for this one because there's technically a large cast, but not everybody's super important. So I think I want to put character kind of in groups instead of like individual characters. Some individual characters, namely the cops. So we'll call it victims, criminals, backup, and then our two cops, which in theory have names. how many dudes becomes like a major problem for the cops alone is a little bit of an answer here. I feel like the second you're outnumbered, I feel like 3 is also just a good number. We could, I think like 3 to 5 is good. But we do kind of need to make a decision. For now, we'll call it 3 to 5. Don't laugh at me for how I attempt to spell this word. Yes. God, I wish I knew how ranking crap worked. Obviously, the 2 cops are detectives. Most of their backup is going to be unis. And then they're going to be talking to the lieutenant. I don't think we need to worry about a captain. Because that's how it works, right? I think. They might be, like, I think the only people they're really going to be talking to, we're going to see a lot of uniformed officers, like, at the bridge. But they'll talk to, like, the lieutenant, but also before that, they'll talk to, like, the people who, like, do the, like, routing of. There's got to be a name for that. Dispatch. I don't think we need any information on these people, if I'm being completely honest. Janine is the one who goes in, right? So, I'll see you in a little bit.
Okay, I am back in a much more a larger frame, really, a slightly nicer angle. We're gonna finish up this last outline and then do a little review, and that'll be it for phase 2. So let's get this timeline completed. It smells like laundry out here. And also, there is an air conditioner on, so I apologize. I almost want to split that into 2 scenes. Should be paying attention to my notes. Okay, I think we'll do kind of like a run through of each of the outlines, do a final tidy up detailing of everything, assuming anything else needs detailing. Or maybe we have some questions unanswered still. That's definitely a possibility. And then it will be time to say these are the outlines. We have to choose from here. So for Sprint 2, this was the originally domestic violence, now possessed person, still technically domestic violence. A detail that I think I need to add to the other two is what POV it's being written in. I don't know if those people's voices are being picked up, so I'm going to wait for them to get into a car and maybe hopefully they're definitely loud enough to be being picked up. I guess this is the problem with recording outside where there's a parking lot. Uh, let's just go for it. So the summary says, two women show up to a house party for a couple's 1-year marriage anniversary. As they're walking up, they hear a fight happening inside, which includes some dishes breaking. They wonder if they should continue to the door and ultimately do. The wife answers with a strange look on her face. The husband goes upstairs. Party ensues, more guests. Both husband and first two guests spend the evening trying to convince the other and other guests of the problem. The husband believes the wife is possessed or ill, and the friends believe he is abusing her. By the end, the two friends have seen the weird behavior and believe the husband. Throughout, the entity has been aggravated by other couples' arguments as well as the husband's presence. When the three of them approach the wife, the entity lashes out, kills the husband, and gives the women a chance to explain their loyalty. The story will be written in third omniscient, mostly so we can see what's happening in the kitchen and upstairs as we follow both husband and friends through the party. So characters, this is the short story with the largest cast that kind of like has names and however, they are still kind of like grouped together as little pods of couples, and then separated possessed wife and husband. This one does worry me that there is just like too much going on, but at the same time, it's maybe like the simplest plot. I don't know. I don't know. So characters, we have the possessed wife, Louise. While she's fully in control, she's kind of meek and quiet and kind. Then, while the entity is aggravated, she kind of has some creepy mannerisms, like a smile that is like a little too smiley, a dead eyes, sharp movements, blunt word choice. Then we have the husband, David, who hides his anger while in company. He's kind of all about appearances, physically affectionate to wife, especially in front of people, and then toxic masculinity tendencies. There was something that I was thinking about. At some point, Katie and Julia are like talking to one of the guys, and they mention that like they have seen him super angry before. So I want to add that into the timeline, just because like I wanna hint at the fact that like he's still not a good guy. Okay, back to characters. So we have like the first and second guest, Katie and Julia. These are the two people from the Sprint scene. Longtime friends of wife, like all the way back from high school. They're both successful in their current careers. One's a teacher, one's an accountant. I don't feel like we need a whole lot else for them. Those things might not even come up. Then we have the lovebird couple, Maria and Paul. They've been together for 6 months, still in the honeymoon phase. Very physically affectionate toward each other, constantly smiling and saying like sappy, goofy stuff. Uh, and then we have the arguing couple who like are in like a healthy relationship. They're just like dealing with some tension. They've been married for about 3 years, and they're arguing over tidying the house. And I chose this because it can be easily triggered by things happening at the party. So that can kind of like trigger a mini argument, which will in turn aggravate the entity. But we want to make sure that there are moments that are showing that like they're still like a happy couple, just like when they're reminded of their current tension, they kind of like butt heads again. So the timeline goes, women show up and hear the fight, and then, you know, like they walk up, they're let in. And then the women in the living room, they kind of like whisper about the fight, and meanwhile we see like a quick glimpse into the interiority of both the husband and the wife. And then we have the other couples showing up, greetings, handing off potluck dishes, whatever, whatever. General small talk, as well as Katie and Julia approaching the other couples, kind of like trying to see if they've seen this behavior before. Like, how worrying is it? Is it possible that like the stress of the night kind of like picked up like a usual argument kind of thing? As like after everyone else has trickled in, then the husband returns, and there's like this clear tension between the husband and Katie and Julia. David approaches Katie and Julia, trying to explain himself, and they kind of have like a hushed argument, trying not to draw too much attention. I think at this point we should probably mention an aggravation of the entity. So we were gonna kind of have this like swelling of the entity. Speech, speech, speech. So David and Louise give like their lovey-dovey first anniversary speech or whatever. Uh, and while David's speaking, the entity is like clearly having trouble keeping itself together. Fred and Greg then have an argument, and the entity is really struggling to hold on. Those mannerisms are like really coming out. The like movement of Louise is really off. Her like facial expressions are strange. Then we have Maria and Paul have some sort of cute moment, and this kind of like settles the entity back down. Then we have now that Katie and Julia have kind of seen the weird behavior of the wife, they then approach David and say, okay, like, yes, there's something wrong. Like, we need to, like, help her in whatever way she needs help, kind of thing. And the entity overhears this. This is kind of the breaking point, because not only is David being a conniving little weasel, thinking that he has nothing to do with whatever's going on with his wife, even if they are like assuming like a mental break, like he's not like, yeah, like I hit her and I abuse her, and that's why she's having a mental break. Um, but like also then it's like the loss of like these longtime friends, loss of like a loyalty. The three of them then approach Louise, and this is where the entity cannot take it anymore, lashes out, gruesomely kills the husband, and kind of gives like a final like, give me a reason why I shouldn't kill you too, to the two friends. And that's the outline for that one. So then the next one is one person leads the other into a witch's house. The summary, person one is leading their new friend to their witchy mentor's house. They believe this is the final ritual that will open a new well of metaphysical power, but we also even find out that this mentor is actually a cannibal. Person one meets this mentor via Facebook ad, powerful local witch looking for apprentice, and meets person two through Bumble BFF. So I guess in some strange way, this is definitely like a caution of meeting weirdos from online. As much as we love to like make friends online, this is kind of, I guess, about like rushing into that. Um, and yeah, so we have kind of like two lists that then like show up later on. Um, that like we'll kind of like reference back to. So we have a list of creepy things kind of leading up to the house during what will be the hike scene. Trail markers are no longer seen as they're walking through. So like they are on a regular trail, and then at some point they've gone off that trail and there are no trail markers anymore. The path itself becomes narrower, overgrown, clearly unmaintained, like fallen trees, whatever. And then the like person two, Martha, has like this like gut feeling, which leads to like some high anxiety, which leads to being kind of like jumpy, even at things that aren't necessarily like scary. Uh, but I also like this. Why does it say coils instead of could? I made a couple of notes while I was writing this up, and this is kind of something that why I like to generally start written, because I would like, like arrow over to here, but like it works fine this way, and I think it's still fine to just keep it in this, like with comments at the side. But I thought that it would be interesting because we've changed it up a little bit from when we first started, obviously. You've been watching the video, you know that. So, like, Martha is a witch in kind of like the pagan, spiritual, general, like, current day witchcraft practitioner kind of thing. Um, and so, with so many signs showing up, I want to have like some sort of like nod to the fact that like she is noticing these as like an actual like metaphysical sign of something being wrong, as well as like a very tangible real thing being wrong, because those two things can absolutely go together, you know. And then I also thought it would be fun. As part of that list, I had, like an owl hoots in the daytime, and then just like crows cawing and ravens croaking. And I thought this would be interesting to like have like early on in the trail, to be like, oh, like that's a crow. Oh, that one was a raven though. Like it was lower and like croakier and whatever. And then like that can be kind of the interiority of Martha, to be like, oh my gosh, those might have actually been signs. And then she starts noticing the other things. And then we have a list of things like once we can see the house, things that she might be picking up on. And I have a really interesting thought about this, but that list is a purple door, witches' bells, ladders, hanging bones, feathers, runes. Those very stereotypical things that you see hanging in like every witchy movie. Sigils or runes on fence posts, stepping stones. A besom on the veranda. A besom, for those of you who don't know, is just it's it's a broom. But like it's a broom for craft and not a broom for cleaning, although you might use your besom to clean so that you can clean and cleanse at the same time. And then a herb garden, but with like old timey signs stuck in the ground. So like I have newt, and then I have a couple of resources here to help me with that. But um, I thought it would also be interesting. That should be maybe don't make sense. Anyways, Martha realizes that all of these sigils and runes like don't really make sense. Obviously, like some of them she maybe doesn't recognize, but there's like a lot of like mixing and then like runes that just like have nothing to do with something that you would like put out like on your fence post, because usually that would be for like protection or like drawing in good things, and like it'll just be like a rune for like something, I don't know, not that. I'll have to think about it. But she notices that things like aren't really lining up to make sense. And this actually like gives her a little confidence that this isn't like a real witch's house, and so she's not like worried about entering a witch's house. Um, and I think this story kind of like toes the line between like how fantasy it is. Like I think there's like just like a little more magic happening than most people believe as magic happens now, kind of thing. Um, but that kind of like sets her up to feel confident going inside that she might be able to talk herself out of whatever situation is currently brewing. So as for characters, smallest cast, we got 3 characters. We've got Dana the apprentice, the person who is leading the person to the witch's house. Then we have the new friend Martha, who is a witch, um, who was just looking for a friend to go hiking with. And then we have Hildy, or Hilda, whichever way you end up saying it is fine with me, who is like the master witch, but actually just a cannibal. Although we may throw in a twist that that she does actually gain metaphysical power from eating the flesh of humans. We'll see. We'll see if we make that twist nod, whatever, at the end. Um, and I do have optional endings in this timeline, but I've pretty much decided we're going with ending one. Only because like we came up with that, and then I kind of went back in the outline and figured some stuff out. But the timeline goes, Dana is searching for witch tips in groups on Facebook, comes across Hildy's ad, looking for an apprentice. It says she will help the right person open a new well of metaphysical power. Of course, the right person is one who is malleable. So Dana and Hildy meet at a cozy cafe next to a metaphysical shop. It's a very normal meeting, but like this meeting is like Hildy like sussing out whether or not she thinks that she can manipulate Dana into eventually bringing her a human sacrifice. They discuss witchcraft basics, tapping into the power of the earth and beyond. And I actually want to make that note of this is Hildy testing how malleable Dana is. And then time passes. It's like 6 months later. They've been working together, and Hildy tasks Dana with the final part of the ritual, finding a human sacrifice. And so, oh, and within this, I want there to be nods that like this is not the first. Some people walk by. This is not the first sacrifice that's been made, but it will be the first human one, and I kind of want to make it seem like they keep getting like larger and larger and larger and larger, like literally like the animals getting larger and larger. Um, and so Dana decides to go about this by scrolling through Bumble BFF and finding someone, and looking for hobbies that will kind of like help her get this person to the forest. And so they invite them to their favorite trail, which is one that Martha has never heard of, or like maybe she's heard of like the regular trail, but Dana's like there's like an offshoot of it that like most people don't know about, whatever, whatever. Either way, Martha's excited about this. And then we finally make it to the scene that we actually wrote in the sprint, and there's going to be a lot of changes in this because originally it was like under the guise of like a romantic getaway, and now it is just like a platonic, like this is their first meeting getaway. Um, the trail outing starts normal but quickly turns creepy. Martha has a gut feeling something is off, and this continues to be reinforced by creepy things along the trail. And then they reach the house. Martha tries to run. Dana tries to calm her. It ends with Dana just like dragging her in. And I thought it would be interesting like if she had like some sort of like potion or something that she thought would like really calm this person down. She uses that and like it doesn't work, but she thinks nothing of it or something like that. But like then like around the house she then starts seeing these like very stereotypically witchy things that aren't quite right. And then the ending that we're going with is they enter the house. Hildy and Dana try to tie Martha down. Martha starts talking her way out of it and says she'll help Hildy tie Dana down instead. Hildy eats Dana and Martha runs. Alright, and then the final outline that we have is for number 5, 2 cops enter without backup. Backup can't get to them. So the summary is 2 cops are at the house of a criminal ready to go in but waiting for backup. They argue, then hear something that makes one partner go in. The other won't let them go alone. They search the house, find a basement full of women. They find out backup isn't coming, and they hear the traffickers on their way down. The women were already planning an escape, and the cops join forces and break their way out, capturing or maybe killing the men in the process. I think some of them are going to end up captured, some of them will end up dead. It'll depend on what happens while we do that combat scene. And then I have kind of like a throughout content thing. We'll use weather to keep emotional pace and tension. Sunny, then suddenly it's raining and things turn for the worse. They find out shortly after that backup isn't coming. So kind of like as things get worse in the house, like the weather also gets worse because the weather is also really important for the fact that the bridge or whatever gets washed out. And so that's why backup isn't coming. So like not only is it kind of like pathos, but it's also like a narrative element that isn't whatever. It's like a content narrative element. So this is where I have the characters really like grouped into groups and not really individuals, because this is a large cast, but the individuals don't particularly matter to be like spread out as like super fleshed out characters. So like we have the victims, who are in various states of malnourishment and dress and kind of like physical ability based or physical wellness, other than malnourishment, bruises, scratches, that kind of thing. They are, however, ready for a fight, even if some of them, their bodies are kind of starting to give up because they're not being taken care of well. But they've obviously planned this escape, and it just so happens that, like, it coincides with the cops showing up. Then we have the criminals, which I've decided are 5, but only 3 of them come down the stairs kind of thing. The other 2, like, the combat kind of, like, moves up the stairs, I suppose. One is in a suit, while the rest are in jeans and t-shirt with or without a flannel or a jacket. The suit guy's a runner, so, like, the suit guy will be part of the people coming downstairs, but he's going to run immediately because he is, like, he's, like, the slight guy. I know it says 3 to 5 burly men, but, like, he's also, like, he's clearly the brains of the operation, if you will. They're all armed, some of them only with knives, 2 of them with guns. The suit guy has a gun, and then one of the guys on the main floor has a gun. And then we kind of have like the second POV, which I realize in the timeline we only skip to once, so I want to add in a scene where like we see them like driving toward the bridge. Maybe as like when they're like we'll add to them like first like talking to dispatch calling for backup, and dispatch will be like they're already on the way, and then like maybe we'll like see the cops like rushing toward the bridge, and then like the next time we see them like the bridge is gone. We might need a third one. This second POV might be like written kind of separately and then like thrown in. But then of course we have like a bunch of unnamed, non-specific uniformed officers. That's the backup. Then we have the dispatch officer. And then we have the 2 cops. Janine, she's the one who rushes in, and Lila is the one who wants to wait for backup, but won't let her partner go in alone. So we want to try to add in 2 from the other POV. So the first one is Janine and Lila argue about going in or waiting for backup, working their way through the house. So what's actually going to happen is let's go start working their way through the house. Main floor. Maybe we... I don't really want to start with that. I guess maybe we have to. Okay, so Janine and Lila on the other end. We're with the dispatch and the and backup. The backup is racing toward the island. weather looks fine for now. And then maybe it won't be here. It'll be here. Where we have and originally I was saying that this like needed to be like a big bridge that caused like a huge like tragedy, but I don't think it actually does. I think it only needs to stop backup from coming. And I think rather than saying like we're not coming, the lieutenant needs to say something like we're coming, but like we gotta figure some shit out because like the bridge is out. Okay, so the timeline as it stands now we're starting in the other POV where we can hear dispatch. Um, and like dispatch is going to be saying, like backup is like on the way, and then we like see backup racing toward the island. Um, get rid of that. That just like makes more sense. And then we have the sprint scene, which is Janine and Lila argue about going in or waiting for backup, working their way through the house, the main floor, and heading upstairs because they hear sounds up there. The weather's nice. They think they're getting closer because of the sound, but they find out that the sounds are actually kind of like being echoed and amplified through the vents. And as they realize this, clouds move in and everything gets like eerily dark. Like if you've been near a storm, you know what I mean by this like unnatural, like eerie darkness during the day. And then we switch to the other POV, backups getting toward the bridge, and we kind of like see the storm hit and wash the bridge away. And then they find the basement where the victims actually are. Open the door slowly. They're rushed by the victims because the victims have uh, decided like this is the day to escape, and so they think that it's the men coming in or like the criminals coming in, and so they rush the door. Very quickly, they realize that's not what's happening, and then they start kind of like telling them what's up, who the bad guys are, and also the cops call it in. And then, like, that's kind of like where it ends. They're calling it in, and then we flip to the other POV, and the lieutenant is answering them, saying, like, we're not coming, you shouldn't have gone in, the bridge is out. So all the way through them, like, descending into the basement, the weather will kind of like grow in intensity. And then they're in the basement. They hear people coming down the stairs. This can only be bad. There's no choice but to fight them. And then we have a combat scene kind of punctuated with weather. And I made a note to myself to try to overwrite this because editing will tell me when to, like the weather's too much weather. Um, and they succeed in their combat, and then a helicopter shows up too little too late, but the criminals are subdued and they can like get the victims like medical attention, eventually get them out. But like we don't need to watch all of that happen, we just need the like yay of the criminals being subdued. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to decide in this video. You'll have to wait for the next one about which one's moving on. Um, I have been going back and forth still the entire time. So I still haven't decided anyways. I couldn't tell you if I wanted to. My overall experience with outlining has been very similar to my outlining experience with pretty much anything else. Um, I do really like kind of just doing that like brain dumpy, like these are all the questions I have to answer to figure out where this story is going. And then tidying that up into something that's actually like referenceable. So I think I'm going to insert here kind of the like written version and then the document version of each of those so you can see uh, how they're both set up. And it doesn't always look like this for me, and very often, especially for longer pieces, there are more sections, more questions, a lot more things that I need answered. Also, sometimes I'll go down like different routes to see like which story I like better. even by the time we got to the documents, there were points where I was like, oh, but what if it did this? Oh, but what if it did this? And that's something that I kind of hate because I know that I'll never write all of those stories, and I do have to make a decision about what story I'm writing right now. And you don't know if it's the best option. Now, you can write all of your options and then make a decision from there. Kind of like writing a bunch from the same prompt, like even more similar than that. You can just write all of them and see which one feels best. I usually just pick something and write it, but you can also revisit those things. Something else I think to take note is that even my outlines tend to have questions still left open, or like they're not fully detailed. Like when we were walking through them, I was saying things like, we'll see how that like pans out like while I'm writing. It's always possible that the stories that I have outlined here are not going to be the stories that we have by the time I'm done writing. Because I'm always just like allowing my brain to like wander and think up new ideas. So these outlines are definitely reference documents, but I'm not beholden to them. And I think that's how most people end up using outlines, even people who do like really detailed outlines. I think sometimes they end up off script, and that's just part of the creative process. I'm sure there are people who like always follow their outline like to a T, and then any changes that they're going to make, they end up making during editing. But those people also spend a lot more time with their outlines, so they've already gone through the like, oh, what if we go this way? What if we go this way? And like figured it out and made those decisions. Whereas I don't mind leaving some of those decisions kind of open. Yeah. What else do I have to say about the outlining process? What is that sound? I don't think I have anything else. It's possible that by the time I'm done editing, I will have some more thoughts, and so if I do, I will pop back in with them. But I think that it kind of sums up how I go about outlining, which I think was what this video really was about. Like, obviously, it's about the challenge, but it's also very much about showing you my writing process. And part of that writing process is my like haphazard notes turned slightly cleaner reference document that I may or may not follow while I actually write things. So it'll be interesting for you guys to watch whichever two stories get chosen and how they morph from what they start as in the outline into what an almost finished piece looks like, and then what a finished piece looks like. The next video will have phase 3 and 4 in it, so it's gonna be a very writing vlog post. I'm gonna try to make it aesthetic. We'll see. We'll see if I succeed or not. And I probably this is the thing that's going to be a little different. Is I'm not going to share the whole thing. The whole thing will not end up being shown in the video. Like you might get like some quotes and things, but there are literary magazines that are like, we will not publish anything that's been previously published. And while this isn't previously published in a writing sense, it is like kind of a gray area depending on how strict some of those magazines are. And so you might get some quotes, you'll get some like general thoughts. I'll probably tell you kind of like the directions that I went, but you won't get to see everything, unlike up until now, obviously. Okay, I think that's it. If you're following along in the writing challenge, let me know how your outlines went. Did they help you figure out where to go forward? And do you regret leaving your other two behind? do you think that you will return to them? And the one that you end up kicking out here, do you think you will return to it? Or do you kind of already know which story is going to make it to the end? I know I don't, but I think it's quite possible that you could do this and just kind of know already which one's going to make it to the end. Okay, we're done. I'm rambling. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun. I had a blast. Catch you next time. Bye.